Week 2 of Nothing But Charlie Kirk being in the news. We're going to talk a bit about some of the reactions to Charlie Kirk, especially in the immediacy before we knew who it was that actually allegedly did it. I actually have questions about whether or not this gentleman is the person that was involved, whether he was a patsy. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't look and see this 22-year-old kid being able to go back and make that 200-yard shot. And this is coming from a Wisconsin hunter. But we're going to talk a bit about that, some of the best takes, some of the worst takes. The worst takes were a real competition, I'm not going to lie, and I can't even attribute sidesism to this at this point. So we have got a lot to go over here today, and we're going to talk just a bit about that. But in other news, as we run down to the bottom of the news stack, a $1.6 billion data center has been proposed in western Wisconsin. There's been some question over who is involved in this particular data center. We'll talk about what's going on with that, where we go there, and what's happening with that. Donald Trump says Republicans will hold a midterm convention coming up into the midterms this coming year. Let's just say that might not be the best idea to do, and I'll talk about why. I mean, if it's executed right, this actually has the potential to turn out spectacularly. But I mean, we've been watching the modern body politics for the last 10 years, and this has an even greater potential to backfire tremendously. And finally, the U.S. has conducted another strike on a Venezuelan boat. And I'm going to say the same thing I said last week. If you're new here, you'll have to tune in and see. Plus, we've got things I like and things that I hate at the bottom of the show. So stick around for a couple hours of the news. We're going to try to make this not go for 3 hours again, but I'm probably going to get lost in the weeds talking about Charlie Kirk. So we will see you on the other side of the title card. And when I get where I'm going, well, there will be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I've carried all these years. And I'll leave my heart wide open, and I will love and have no fear. When I get where I'm going, don't cry for me. Down here, I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You remember that time in 2001 where a certain political thing happened, and I mean, there were reasons for certain people, especially certain people in my life, to not be united in everything that was happening with that. But for the most part, we were all pretty much united at that point. We all had a common goal. You know, every single country singer had a new song about it, and we were all looking forward to the same thing. And realistically, it was easy at the time for certain politicians whom I cannot stand to come back out and say, you know, go out and buy yourself a new car you can't afford and a whole bunch of jewelry and possibly a new house you can't afford, otherwise the terrorists win. And we all were like, okay, well, yeah, we don't want the terrorists to win, so this is all a good thing. And realistically, when we were back at the at the onset, I think maybe even shortly after when I ran Contemporary yesterday, or last week, not yesterday, we were all kind of united into one front of, okay, this whole thing was bad. And within a day, so I would say about middle of the day, September 11th, which is an ironic day for me to say unity in the United States to begin with, but about middle of the day, September 11th, we were all unified. What happened to Charlie Kirk was bad, and what's happening as a result is bad, and then our paid shills got involved, and I think that's a big part of the difference between now and back when the original September 11th happened was, I mean, our paid shills were all in the media, but, you know, we all took them at basically face value, didn't have a lot of ability to sit back and question. So we took that, we interpreted it as we needed to on our own, in our households. And there wasn't a lot of social media for us to run around and drive ourselves deeper into our own echo chambers and into our own ideological fallacies at that point, I would say. Now, with where we're coming at this point and what we're seeing, a tragedy united us all. It does that in our country. I mean, we're good at that where we are, but a united front is harder to control, and I think that's where we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing here. I'll be completely honest, I think a lot of what we're seeing here as well is, you know, it's the result of a large swath of the MAGA movement being former Democrats. I know that really, really makes the current Democrats really mad when you bring that up, but yeah, the coalition that's around MAGA is, basically it comes from the fact that the progressive left, the machine politic left tried to appeal to the progressive left, the college students, the high earners, the big business leaders. They tried to appease to them at the expense of the working class, which they spent 5 generations trying to appeal to before. So these people felt betrayed. They went over to the GOP, especially when they had somebody who was speaking oh so smoothly to them about what he was going to do for the working class that was betrayed. In essence, initially by Barack Obama, but a lot of that started even under the Clinton years. So I could go off on a tangent and analyze that part of things for an hour, but I want to really focus on what's happening with Charlie Kirk and how much people are trying to keep us divided and at each other's throats. That's going to be the crux of today's Contemporary. I mean, we're going to talk about news, and I'm sure that there was a lot more news going around than what actually made the stack, but who can find it when everything that you see from CNN to the Daily Wire to probably even the less credible journalism sites like Newsmax or the Daily Stormer or MSNBC is just plastered wall to wall with what everybody involved in them thinks about Charlie Kirk. So that's going to be the majority of our day today. We're going to talk about this. I still say that it's terrible what happened to Charlie Kirk, and I've been seeing some very surprising reactions to a lot of this. I think Bridget Fedesi had one of the better reactions to it. I watched half of her video last night and her reaction to all this, but I don't know. It's just, this is bringing out the worst in people, and I think they're being encouraged on by people who have an advantage when we're all fighting with each other and expecting our favorite politicians to protect us from the dangerous other. Something I've been preaching about for a long time, even previous to Trump, when I thought I was a conservative, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some data center in Wisconsin that nobody seems to know where it came from. We're going to talk about Patriot Front because, of course, they had to show up. They're still feds, by the way. The bomb threats that happened almost immediately after the Charlie Kirk thing, Kash Patel being a moron. Actually, we're all over the place, and a lot of it has to do with Charlie Kirk. So strap yourselves in, and yeah, if you can't stay for the entire thing, remember, the live stream version of this gets privated as soon as we're done and we're off. but especially now that we have a hardwired connection and a decent internet provider. I mean, I liked the previous one, don't get me wrong, but their stuff was slow. Now that we have a decent internet provider out here, then, within the hour, we're back uploaded. So there will be, if you can't catch the whole thing, there will be a fresh link in the Discord and on the X, where you can come back and join the entire stream in its entirety. Or we can listen on the audio platform. I put it up to Spotify before I even put it back up to YouTube. The link doesn't get posted anywhere until the YouTube one is up, but you can go back and listen on there. And I do appreciate that, by the way. I track, I watch how many downloads I get on everything, and you guys have been awesome about that. Thank you again, and I didn't really get a lot of chance to say this last week because, everything else that was going on, but thank you for 1,000 episodes of Contemporary. Those of you who've been here from the beginning, those of you who have been here on and off, and we did huge numbers last week in the middle of the day, from what I understand, and I have to reach out to my boy Steven, but it sounds like he is not going to be a regular staple of the middle of the day on the weekday anymore. Kind of would like to know what happened. I know that he was looking to focus more on his music career and less on politics, and I think he was getting a little bit burnt out on it. Who can blame him? I'm getting burnt out on it. Even last week when I started off, one of the things that I brought up and talked about was the fact that, I could realistically draw a bigger audience if I just took these 3 hours every week and played Pokemon or Fallout or something like that, instead of talking about some of the most divisive topics that we have out here. But realistically, people think that I'm good at analyzing politics. Part of that, I think, is because I don't have a team. I said good job when Biden does good things. I said good job when Trump did good things. I've even praised Obama for some of the good things that he did. Hell, I've had nice things to say about the ACA, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes in politics. I haven't had anything nice to say about DACA. That can go fall off a cliff and burn in hell. Not the people on it. The people on it seem to actually be pretty decent for the most part, but the fact that they have to get treated like political pawns, there's another tangent that I could go off on forever. I have spoken at length on my disdain for DACA. Anyway, we've got a lot to go over here today, and I would like to do other stuff today. A lawn that hasn't been cut in 3 weeks, even though it's getting colder. It got really warm in Wisconsin again, so that's probably something I should do. Is maybe go and pick some tomatoes so we can do something with them. And, well, it's always grocery shopping time. A little bit of a change of the schedule on the Wednesday. We'll actually be out of town all day tomorrow, so that's why this was done up with no warning. But anyway, yeah, let's get into it. Let's get started. Checking with the live chat. I do check on the live chat throughout the entirety of the stream. This is a small enough stream that I can pay special attention to everybody as we go. So it's a small enough channel. Looks like nobody's jumped in yet, but we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. And, well, let's get started. Let's do this thing, huh? Let's do it. Maybe I'll talk to an empty room for the entire day. I don't know. I have no issue with that, because at least we've got the recordings. Alright, let's do this. Alright. Where is my news scene? We're going to start as we always do, just with a little bit of an analysis on finance and seeing what happens with that and where we go. On the Dow, which is what I typically use because it seems to be most tied to the working man and the working class. It's the more industrial index. The tech and the finance sectors don't necessarily affect those of us, the little people on the ground, but the Dow typically does. The Dow Jones Industrial Average spent the day yesterday down 300 points throughout the day. Today it went back up almost 300 points almost immediately. It's searching for a new record right now. We're not quite there, the record being at 46,137.20. So far today we have hit 46,096.82 on the day, and it looks like it might be coming back down at this point here, so that's something we'll watch as we go. Let's find our news for the day, our coverage off of that. Do we have news on that? Yeah, let's have a look at, we'll use CNBC today. I don't always know if IBD is going to be behind a paywall. They kind of pick and choose when they want to be, but we've got live updaters on CNBC to see where it is that we go. Let me get the live chat back up here. The new icon on Rumble, by the way, threw me the hell off while I was trying to figure out what was going on there. Lady Asylum has joined us over on the Twitch side. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The S&P 500 eases a bit from record as traders await big Fed rate decision. This is a live updater, so we'll look at a couple updates from that from P.S. Singh and Alex Herring. Stocks edged slightly lower on Tuesdays. Investors took some profits ahead of a highly awaited Federal Reserve interest rate decision. The S&P traded 0.13% lower to close at 6606.76 after hitting a fresh record earlier in the session. The Nasdaq lost 0.07% to finish the session at 22,333.96. The Dow dropped 125.55 or 0.27 to close at 45,757.90. Key bull market leaders declined, with shares of Nvidia and Microsoft losing 1.6% and 1.2% respectively. Palantir and Google parent Alphabet also pulled back. The two-day Fed meeting, which kicked off on Tuesday, is expected to result in a rate cut for the first time since December. Interest rate futures are pricing in 100% certainty of at least a quarter-point cut, according to CME's FedWatch tool. What investors are watching most is the central bank's forecast for rates for the rest of the year and whether voting members are expecting one more additional cut or two before 2025 ends. And I think a lot of people are sitting on pins and needles for that one right now as well. Actually, last week, after I got off stream, I got a text message. I got a voicemail from some mortgage broker that I'd never heard of, saying that they want to come back and refinance me because the rates are coming back down. And they gave me a specific type of refinance, which I talked to my regular mortgage broker, the one who helped me get the house that we're sitting in right now. And she said that that particular one that they were advertising is I'm not eligible for, but she does want to sit and review the data and see if we can get me down into a lower point as well. And I think a lot of what's going to happen with that in the decision is whether we lose one or we have one more cut or two more cuts by the end of the year. So I think a lot of people are sitting here watching the Fed and seeing what they do. I think intelligently, if they wanted to do something good for the economy and for the working man, this is not official financial advice. This is just kind of me having analyzed this for as long as I have and knowing what's needed and where we're at with everything right now. I would say do one cut, but make it 3/4 of a point. Right now. It would be nice if they dropped everything back to zero, but I think we would just completely overheat everything that we have going on right now. You take one nice 3/4 point cut, you're going to get a lot of money moving through the finance sector as a bunch of people like me go look for a time and a place to go back and do their refinance with a lot of money velocity without a lot of exchange of wealth and value. There's not going to be a lot of moving, and there's just going to be a lot of people trying to redo what it is that they have and try to lock themselves into a better place before, well, something else happens and we go spike it back up. I do anticipate there's going to be another major calamity in this country somewhere around 2028. But people are trying to get themselves locked in before that, so they can sit and ride it all out. That, if they started at a 7.5% rate, like some people did, then they can go back and ride it out at 5.5 or 5 or 4.5. I'd love to ride it out at 4.5. Quest Fanning has joined us. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Fanning. We're experimenting with the middle of the day stuff, plus we had to reschedule a few things for doctor's appointments. That's why we're doing Wednesday, not Thursday. Traders will also closely monitor Jerome Powell's subsequent press conference for any clues of the future monetary policy. The meeting also comes with political tension after the Senate confirmed President Trump's pick to join the central bank, Stephen Moran. The president is also attempting to remove Lisa Cook, who is the Fed governor, who is voting at the meeting with Moran. Although labor demand is softening, labor supply issues continue to offset the weakness and the recession risks remain limited for now, said Seema Shah, chief global strategist at Principal Asset Management. Any decision to cut 50 basis points at this stage would appear to be driven more by political pressure than economic necessity. No, I don't think that's completely the case. Now, if we said a full point or drop it to 0, I would say political pressure. I think 50 to 75 is safe right now. Vong is on the kick side with a little bit of Latin for us. Welcome. Allowing the Fed to get ahead of the slowdown without reacting to early signs of strain. Traders continue to monitor developments on the global trade discussions and so-called reciprocal tariffs that are set to take effect in November. We'll see what happens with those because, that's been pushed off and pushed back. What is this now? The 4th time? Scott Bessent told CNBC on Tuesday he expects further talks before that deadline and that the Chinese now sense a trade deal is possible after the U.S. and Chinese officials wrapped up 2 days of talks in Madrid. On Monday, Trump also gave positive assessment of the trade discussions on Monday, which led U.S. stocks to rally and push the S&P to close above 6,600 for the first time. So the S&P hit itself a new record. During their talks this week, the U.S. and Chinese officials reached a framework agreement on TikTok to allow the social media app to keep operating in the U.S., and I'm still going to continue to not using it, by the way. Sources confirmed to CNBC on Tuesday that Oracle will be among the firms enabling TikTok, which led the stock 1.5% higher on Tuesday. Yet U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said on Monday that broader trade discussions have been deferred to another time given the intense focus on reaching the deal regarding TikTok. So, lots and lots and lots of stuff that's moving in the finance sector. Most of it comes down to what the Fed does. While also seeing what our trade decisions do. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. Let's see. You can wrench me over here. I can do the Janny stuff as well as on Twitch. Are you wrenched on Twitch? I don't even know. I mean, yeah, I can do that on the kick side, no problem. Because it's mostly bots over there anyway. I know how to do this. I just have to figure out how to do it on the fly because they changed their interface a little bit. I knew how to do it before, but they did change the interface. It was like 2 clicks before, because I put Palm on moderator status in 2 clicks. Da 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 da. On-air production. It's fantastic. Rolls. Let's see if I can do that. From here, just like that. We'll put the live chat up over here for a second. Well, that's kind of a clumsy way to do that. But we are back. So, alright, let's go back to stream. And now we're back on. Hooray! Anyway, back to where we go here. Alright. We have got to talk about Charlie Kirk. And one of the first things that came out, our big news of the day, our big news of the week, is the fact that they found the guy. Allegedly. They found the guy who done it. Like I said in the opening, I don't buy it, and I'm not even going to beat around the bush with that. There is something else going on underneath the surface of this, and I don't know what it is. But I even said to myself when we were first starting to discuss this, and the name came out and the history of the dude came out, and apparently comes from a major MAGA family, and you know how he's so horrible to everybody and this and that and the next thing, and you know he might actually be a right wing. Now it doesn't appear that he actually is a right winger for all intents and purposes. I think he might have been raised that way, but I feel like he was really on the full out rebellion side of things. And that's where he led to. Kind of like what made me, I don't know, start to look at conservatism before I remembered that it's mostly Bushite kind of stuff. But coming from a union family of people who were almost entirely Democrat, the form of rebellion was to be conservative. And a lot of, by the way, Gen Z, the rebellion that they see right now is also to go into conservatism, rather, not conservative. Conservatism based on the fact that so much of the society, since they were kids, has been almost entirely liberal. All of academia, most of big business, it's all been liberal. I mean, the big names were mostly libertarian/liberal tech bros. So to have a deeply structured conservative structure is a rebellion against the more loose and liberal ideas of what came from the tail end of Gen X and on through the millennial generation. But going on with this, Art Candy, who is, by the way, one of the paid shills, one of the people who's trying to keep us divided, MAGA repeatedly blamed immigrants, trans people, and Democrats for Charlie Kirk's murder. By the way, I never saw a blame for immigrants and trans people for this. And even further, and we'll talk a bit more about this with the initial reaction with the bomb threats that went to the historically black colleges and universities. I never, ever, ever saw anybody saying that it was a black dude that nailed Kirk. I saw a lot of blame for Democrats. Yes, I will say that. But nothing about trans people. Okay. I did have a lot of people come out and say that, okay, this might be another trans shooter because we've had so many of those that got publicized. Because you can't really give the race and identity of most of the mass shooters in the world because, well, that would be racist. By the way, crickets when they found out that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson is a white Mormon from Utah from a gun-loving Republican family. And I put this one on mostly because this is the most honest take out of all the paid shills. Now, a lot of your Brooklyn dads, your JoJo from Jersey's, and probably T-Drick and Robert Reich, but I'm blocked by both of those people. We're all coming out and saying that Robinson himself was full-out conservative, MAGA, whatever other label that they want to go back and put on this one. I don't necessarily buy that. And again, I know people are saying that he confessed during his charging. Guys, I don't buy that either. I don't. I'm looking at everything that's coming from us, coming from the media, that's coming from this. I'm looking at the kid, his age, and the fact that the story was already basically written before we got confirmation of who this person was. And I didn't see it at first. I put a post on X about that. I said flat out, I should have seen this coming because all the Democrats were sitting here saying, wait and see, wait and see, wait and see, instead of go straight out and blame the guns. They were saying, we have no evidence about the shooter, so just wait and see, just wait and see. That is the indicator that they already knew who it was and what his, quote, motives were, which means they'd already tailored a social media platform, a social media profile, and a narrative for this. We see the same thing with the Butler shooting of Trump. And we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later down in the stream, but the shootings of both Melissa Hortman and the burning of Josh Shapiro's governor's mansion. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Because when we look at things like that, I mean, we don't know anything about the guy that shot Melissa Hortman. They said that he was a right-winger. He was appointed by Walz because it was supposed to be a bipartisan committee. And then the next thing we know, we hear about the fact that he might have been hired by Walz to take out Klobuchar so Walz could run for his seat. And instead of debunking that, the story just completely vanished from the news. It was gone. Which almost tells me that they had a narrative that they needed to set up for later on, because possibly they were planning something like what happened last week on the 10th. And they needed people to not be questioning what Vincent's motives were, so they could come back out and continue to say that he was MAGA. And I mean, the Shapiro, the mansion burning in Pennsylvania, the governor's mansion burning in Pennsylvania, that dude was outright one of the pro-Palestinian kids. And they still tried to paint that as right-wing violence. So, but that's the narrative that's trying to get peddled right now, that this was some white conservative kid. And again, I don't even buy that this was the person who did it. Fox Live now with reporting. Charlie Kirk shooting suspect identified as Tyler Robinson. Let's see. Arvold says, yeah, he was full rebel against my parents mode. Possibly, yes. Vong says, we have confirmation that he was alt-left from his own mouth. The DMs with his boyfriend have been released. He said why he did it. I don't buy those DMs either. We're going to talk about that too. Also, said boyfriend is not only a furry, but thinks he's a woman. Alright, this is from Heather Miller. The suspect in the murder of Charlie Kirk is in custody. State and federal officials made the announcement at a press conference. Friday morning, President Trump confirmed the news in an interview on Fox and Friends, before the press conference began. At a press conference Friday morning, authorities identified the suspect as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson from Utah. They said that he acted alone, which would be nice and convenient for the narrative they're trying to push. Spencer Cox, Utah governor, said Thursday evening, a family member of Robinson's reached out to the family, a family friend who contacted law enforcement and reported Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he was the shooter. Robinson's roommate also spoke with investigators and showed them messages from Robinson on Discord. Those messages discussed a rifle wrapped in a towel, a unique scope on the rifle, and engravings on the bullets. Which tells me, again, this was more made to get us fighting than actual confessions of things that happened. On Fox and Friends, Trump said the suspect's father may have played a role, but authorities at the press conference didn't specify which family member aided in his arrest. A family member told investigators Robinson had become more political in recent years, and Robinson had mentioned that Kirk was coming to UVU. The family member said Robinson voiced his dislike of Kirk, saying Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. I hate that he was full of hate and spreading hate. Don't you hate that? The same family member said Robinson drove a gray Dodge Challenger, because it's always a Dodge product. Investigators say Robinson arrived in campus in a gray Dodge Challenger. In a wooded area near campus, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. Cox said the rifle had a scope mounted at the top. Messages on a fired bullet casing said notice bulges. Oh, whoa, what's this? Inscriptions were also found on 3 unfired casings. The first one read, hate fascist catch, with an up arrow, a right arrow, and 3 down arrows. The second one said, oh, Bella Chow, Ciao Bella, ciao ciao ciao. The third one read, "If you read this, you are gay. LMAO." What do these messages mean? The mainstream media trying to be Gen Z. This will be interesting. I was going to skip after this part, but I'm just looking just at a cursory glance of this and saying, this is entertainment enough. We've got to share this with the audio platform because they can't see what's on the screen. You, who are watching the live stream or the video replay, can see exactly what I'm about to read out loud. Notice bulges? Oh, well, what's this? This is a Gen Z phrase using the furry commentary. Or used in the furry community, rather. The "oh" was meant to mimic a wide-eyed face emoji. It's used in more than the furry community. It's prevalent there, but the online simp community just uses it constantly to begin with. I've seen a lot of that in e-girl live chats as well. Hey, fascist, catch! This appears to be a reference to Helldivers 2 video game. The arrows are a sequence of controller moves that allows the player to drop bombs. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that, people like Robinson have been calling anybody who disagrees with them, even remotely, fascist. Although with the button combination, I'm sure it's a mix of the two. Oh Bella, ciao, Bella, ciao Bella, ciao ciao ciao. Bella Ciao is an Italian folk song and an anti-fascist resistance anthem. Edits of Trump singing it have been widely shared on social media. If you read this, you are gay. LMAO. Conspiracy videos accusing Trump and his allies of being secretly gay have also been shared on TikTok. That I actually didn't know about. That's a new one to me. So, yeah. That was worth it. That was 100% worth it. To read that. And cringe. And you all had to cringe too. Alright, The Hill with our, quote, what to know about the suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting from Philippe Timotija. Spencer Cox identified the suspect in the shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, resident of Utah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him, Cox said during a Friday morning press conference. If we're trying to keep the political tensions down, that might have not been the way to word that. The notices comment started as a joke in MMOs used to mock men who made female characters and pretended to be gamer girls to get favors from other players. I resemble that remark. No, we're going to try to keep it clean because we're still technically morning stream, even though we're not doing early morning commute right now. If I'm playing a first person or third person shooter, I always make a female character. Unless it is an MMO. I guess I did make a male character when I played 76 the last time. The last two times I made a male character for 76. Because I didn't want to be associated with people who are trying to curry favor by being gamer girls. The cake is a lie. I should play that game again. I should stream that game. I should stream a video game to begin with, but I've got to the... I would say third to last scenario in Portal. I've never finished it. I've been close, but I've never finished it. Robinson was booked into the Utah County Jail. Charges have, at the time of this particular article, not yet been filed. They have now been filed at this point. Somebody in the Discord was playing RuneScape the other day because it showed up in the activity report. Law enforcement officials said they believe Robinson acted alone, but Cox emphasized the investigation is ongoing. We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests, the Utah governor said, when asked if he expected additional arrests. 1. I have not played 2 yet, because I wanted to finish 1 first. I think I have 2, I just haven't played it yet. I have Half-Life also, which is supposed to be a prequel to Portal. Here's what we know so far. The 22-year-old is not a student at UVU, where the shooting took place, Cox said. Robinson's a third-year student in the electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. According to the Utah Board of Higher Education, he briefly attended Utah State for 1 semester in 21 and got concurrent enrollment credit through Utah Tech University while in high school between 19 and 21. He is registered as an unaffiliated voter in Utah with an address in Washington, Utah. Cox said a family member of Robinson told authorities that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family members said Robinson had recently relayed at a dinner that Kirk, the founder of TP USA, Toilet Paper USA by the way, was coming to speak at Utah Valley University. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. How was he captured? The governor said a family member of Robinson reached out to a family friend on Thursday, who then got in touch with the Washington County Sheriff's Office saying that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. A source familiar, unnamed of course, there's that junior, trying to make herself known. A source told the Hill's sister network, News Nation, that the suspect in the shooting confessed to his father that he was the shooter. The father then told officials and secured his son until it was picked up by law enforcement. See, and again, that's the thing. Like, that's the part that bothers me the most about how this went. We're sitting here in a situation where if you manage to get out and have 2 people arrested in front of you who were released after questioning, you might actually sit here and think that you got away with it. Now, the investigation is going to continue onward and going on. But why would you sit back and confess unless you wanted specifically to get caught? Like, in all seriousness, I can't put my head around the logic function that says, okay, I've done this heinous thing. Now I want to go back out and get caught, so here's the thing, so let's go and end the investigation. The conspiracy part of my mind still says that there is more to the story, and dude just didn't want anybody to know about it. Kirk's suspected assassin was taken into custody in southern Utah, near Washington. A source briefed on the matter told News Nation's Brian Enton. The suspect was on the FBI's radar on Thursday and was identified through facial recognition investigative methods, the source added. Cox said investigators reviewed video footage from Utah Valley University where Kirk was gunned down, showing that Robinson arrived on campus in a gray Dodge Challenger around 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. He wore a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat, and a white logo and light-colored shoes, according to Cox, adding that when he encountered by investigators in Washington County on Friday morning, Robinson wore a similar outfit. When he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting. The Utah governor said, yeah, that still makes me question a lot of things. As part of the investigation, law enforcement officials talked to Robinson's roommate, who presented them with Discord messages from the Robinson. Cox said one of the messages said Robinson needed to get a rifle from a drop point, and another talked about leaving the weapon in the bush. In the bush. In the bush. In the bush. The messages also mentioned Robinson watching the area where the rifle was left and having wrapped the weapon in a towel. Investigators determined the rifle was a Mauser 98 30-06 with a scope mounted on top of it, Cox said. A Mauser 98 30-06. I'm sorry. I want to just look that up. I want to see what the price point is on that. I'm curious. Because, I mean, that's not a really common rifle to begin with. For sale. Point 3006 for sale. Alright, gunbroker's verifying that I'm human. So let's check on that for just a sec. So starting bids on those typically seem to be a couple $100. Let's bring this over here. But it looks like it's no problem for that to go $2,000 or more. That's in 280, not 30-06. So, I mean, you get lower prices on a lot of smaller caliber stuff, but the actual 30-06 one with the scope is a $2,000 rifle. So I'm sitting here questioning myself, is this something that his family owned prior to that he went out and stole from them? Or was this a major out of the ordinary expense for somebody who's 22 and in an electrical engineering program to have the funds for? Okay, Vong is saying it was his grandpa's, so that would make a little bit more sense. But just when I saw it was a Mauser 98, the first thing that popped through my head was the same thing with when our friend over in Uvalde had the brand new Daniel Defense rifle. That was like a $5,000 rifle plus all the accessories and ammo that he had with it, and kid worked at Wendy's. But yeah, okay, if it was given to him from a family member, that does make a little bit more sense for me. I always try to check the money trail on these kinds of things, because if it doesn't add up, it typically there's more to meet the eye on that one. We talked about the bullet casings. And the initial evidence on that during the manhunt on Thursday, law enforcement released the video of a person of interest, showing him running across the roof of the school's campus, coming down the side of the building, making his way through the parking lot and heading towards a busy street. The suspects left some palm impressions, Utah Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason said on Thursday night. There's some smudges in some places. We're looking to collect DNA. There's a shoe imprint where we believe the suspect is clearly identified as wearing Converse tennis shoes, Mason stated. Also on Thursday, officials published more still photos of the suspect, who wore a black long-sleeve shirt with an eagle and an American flag, blue jeans, a baseball cap, and black sunglasses. So he was wearing American Eagle apparel, which I'm sure was also partially used to cement the "I'm a conservative" narrative with the American Eagle controversy that we just had with Sydney Sweeney fairly recently. 300 to 500 on 30-06. I was seeing like 22 for 300 to 500, but 30-06, the only one I saw was that $2,000 one. But that's who the Hill is telling you this dude is. Alright, briefly on this one, because we covered it in the last one, but more in focus. Suspect in Charlie Kirk shooting reportedly confessed in Discord chat. Which, by the way, if you look in our Discord, I already found a post from somebody on X saying that anybody who downloads Discord needs to be... Did he say investigated or arrested? I think he said arrested. I don't know. I'm going to have to go through a bunch of stuff in Clown World to go double check on that. There's been an ongoing debate about the color of Christ's skin in the Discord. And I'm here for it, by the way. Nope, it's not in there. I don't remember where I put that. Where did I put that? It's not there. Not that I can see in a relatively short amount of time. Alright. The suspect, accused of assassinating conservative activist Charlie Kirk, appeared to have confessed to others in an online chat before surrendering to authorities, according to a report in the Washington Post. Again, realistically, there are things that certain people don't want to be found in an investigation. What's the fastest way to end the investigation? Oh, have somebody confess and say, oh, I worked alone. If you ask me, there should still be some more investigation going on with this. The suspect, Tyler Robinson, wrote to friends on the online platform Discord, "Hey guys, I have bad news for y'all. It was me at the UVU shooting yesterday. I'm sorry for all this." I wonder if there was a federal agent in the Discord with Tyler Robinson. You know, like the Boulder shooting and the Uvalde shooting. A spokesperson for Discord confirmed to Fox Business the reporting from the Post detailing Discord messages where suspected shooter Tyler Robinson appears to take responsibility for Kirk's killing is accurate. I will bet dollars to dimes he used his real name as well, by the way. Dollars to dimes he used his real name in Discord. According to the report, the message was sent on Thursday night, approximately 2 hours before officials took Robinson into custody. Discord provided the authorities with a copy of the message with a confession per the report. Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray and Tyler Robinson is being charged with several counts, including aggravated murder. Gray highlighted the ideological motives with Robinson's family in his own statements, pointing to growing political radicalization. Robinson had voiced opposition to Kirk, accusing him of spreading hate, and left behind a note declaring his intent to kill Kirk. Do we see the Discord messages? Let's have a look. Robinson Discord messages. So it looks like we actually can possibly image search some of those messages. Open image in new tab. So he didn't use his real name. Names retracted. Charlie Kirk got shot, dead. Just saw the video, holy crap. Rip, I guess, bro didn't deserve to go out like that. Sad. And all three, so none of those were Robinson, but all three of the names on those were all redacted. But then September 11th, Zealous Monkey 55095, which is presumed to be Robinson. Hey guys, I have some bad news for y'all. It was me at UVU yesterday. Sorry for all this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thank you for all the good times and laugh. You've been so amazing. Thank you all for everything. Boy, do I have questions. Boy, do I have questions, you guys. Something definitely feels off about this one. His mother said Robinson had become more political, more pro-gay, and trans rights-oriented, Gray said. Gray also revealed a conversation that happened before the shooting where Robinson called the UVU a stupid venue for Kirk's event and accused Kirk of spreading hate. His roommate, Lance Twiggs, a biological male who identifies as transgender, who was in a romantic relationship with Robinson, provided evidence, including a series of text messages from Robinson on September 10th, 2025. In one exchange, Twiggs asked Robinson why he did it. Robinson replied, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence, going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they've moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." When asked how long he'd been planning the shooting, Robinson said it was a bit over a week. So, that's what they have here. The prosecutor is seeking the death penalty on this one. Briefly, because we already know from our friends at NPR, Utah files murder charges against Tyler Robinson from Bobby Allen. Remember, NPR is only 10% government funded, which means they need your help to spread their messages. Of anybody that we disagree with is hateful and has a message of hate. So make sure you hit that donate button. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. Tyler Robinson, the man accused of fatally shooting a conservative influencer, was charged with aggravated murder and other counts in a case in which prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. The murder of Charlie Kirk is an American tragedy, said Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray at a news conference on Tuesday. Charlie Kirk was murdered while engaging in one of our most sacred and cherished American rights. Boy, are we going to be talking about that in just a bit. Authorities have also charged Robinson with firearm counts and multiple obstruction of justice charges for allegedly disposing of the clothes he wore during the shooting. He is accused of directing his roommate to delete incriminating messages and not speak with investigators after Kirk was killed. Hey guys, do you want to help NPR raise $1 million in September? You have the opportunity, it's right there. Yes, donate now. Investigators say surveillance footage showed Robinson walking with a peculiar gait they believe indicates Robinson had a rifle hidden in his pants. Okay, I'm from the 90s. I have to say it. I know everybody's going to cringe when I say it. I have to say it. Is that a rifle in your pants, or are you just happy to see me? Had to. Couldn't help that one. The weapon, a bolt-action rifle, is thought to have been a gift from his grandfather. Prosecutors say Robinson wrapped the gun in a towel and placed it in a wooded area after the shooting. Robinson's mother told investigators that Robinson had, in recent months, become more political and started to lean more to the left. Yeah, we know all of that. Surprised, by the way, that NPR is saying that, because the initial narrative was the fact that this is like the most MAGA right-wing conservative guy that's out there, and that would seem, at least with all the paid shields that we're trying to say, it would be the message that you would think that NPR would try to push out as well. But yes, he has been given murder charges in the first degree, premeditated. Who would have thunk it? Really hard to not to overcharge that, because there isn't really much more to do. You plan it for a week. New York Post has the confession. Read Tyler Robinson's chilling confession to trans partner about Charlie Kirk's murder. You're all I worry about, love. From Jared Downing. Tyler Robinson confessed to murdering Charlie Kirk in a chilling text exchange with his trans lover hours after allegedly carrying out the assassination, and left him a hidden note confessing to the plot, prosecutors said. I still don't buy it. Less than 3 hours after the September 10th killing, the 22-year-old told his live-in partner, Lance Twiggs, that he'd been planning the killing for a week, per the indictment filed on Tuesday. Yep, they have the images. I was about to ask that. And I have more images, by the way, too. Oh, no, there's more. There are more. Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. You're joking, right? I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I'd hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. You weren't the one who did it, right? I am. I'm sorry. I thought they caught the person. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of the side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Why? Why did I do it? Yeah. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Hold on, it's loading. Or maybe it's not going to load. It's okay, I have more. A lot of people are saying that none of this reads like an actual legitimate conversation, which, I mean, I could see that. We got 2 pages of it at least. ABC also saying the motive. Robinson said he killed Kirk because he spreads too much hate. We have an eyewitness account, or attempted eyewitness account. Also leading to a lot of questions. A lot of it, again, it would be open, straightforward if we were just in a situation where he confessed and there weren't so many, what's the word I want to use? Uncertainties about any of this. And anomalies that go along with this. Like this one, Shadow of Ezra says an eyewitness to Charlie Kirk's murder was cut off mid-account as people rushed in, grabbed him and quickly silenced him before he could share the rest of what he saw.
Okay. I was standing from probably the 3rd row in the bottom. I saw hit. I heard the shot ring out. I looked to my left, and then I looked over to my right. I saw him slump over in his chair forward. He slumped over. He had blood coming from the left side of his neck down his shirt, and he slumped over and he was carried off.
Jeff, we're not doing this. I'm sorry.
Get off me! Get off me!
Emotions are running high right now.
Yeah, that's not suspicious at all.
Okay. I was standing from probably the
we had, as they were talking about, somebody else that got arrested in the midst of all this that didn't actually do it. From Newsweek, man who allegedly faked Kirk killing confession gets child porn charge. Again, it seems like a lot of people in this were trying to keep there from being any sort of investigation. I have questions. I have a lot of questions about this. From Jesus Mesa and Gabe Wisnand. George Zinn, who allegedly fabricated a confession in the killing of Charlie Kirk, has been arrested on charges of obstruction of justice and possession of child sexual abuse material. Utah authorities said. Zinn, 71, was arrested at the scene of the September 10th shooting at Utah Valley University in Orem after shouting, "I shot him, now shoot me." He later told investigators he faked the confession to help the real suspect, later identified as Tyler Robinson, escape, according to a probable cause statement. And again, that would have been nice and neat for the narrative that they're trying to come back out and push. I shot him, now shoot me. And then you get the local police, security, typically trigger happy, comes back out and dispatches this particular gentleman. And now your investigation stops because, oh, we had a confession, so why would we need to look for somebody else? Authorities said an investigation into Zinn led to a discovery of explicit material on his phone, including more than 20 images of children between the ages of 5 and 12. Wood chipper, right now. Court records also cite graphic messages in which Zinn admitted to being aroused by the material. I think that might have been a setup, though, too. It's always convenient when they find this kind of material on the device of somebody that needs to be silenced in order for a narrative to go forward. That they just find child sexual abuse material on there with graphic messages of which somebody on a device that is connected to the internet that can be easily searched put out in text messages. I am turned on by this. Look how horrible of a person I am. And I'm not saying that he didn't do it either by any stretch of the imagination. But what I am saying is that if he gets questioned for anything and tries to say, turn on who hired him to do so, etc., whatnot. If somebody did hire him to go back and try to take the fall for all this, if he tries to turn on his handler or the person who hired him, then they just come back out and say, "Are you really going to believe this guy? He had kitty stuff on his phone. And here's documented text messages where he said he was turned on by it. Are you really going to believe this guy?" I don't know. It really bothers me that there's even that much of that material out there to begin with. From People, Robinson's roommate and romantic partner helped turn him in, is very cooperative, says Governor. From Liam Quinn. We'll go just briefly on this one. The assassination sparked a manhunt that ended when Robinson was arrested in Washington County, more than 250 miles from the Utah Valley campus in Orem. Authorities said a family member turned Robinson into authorities after the FBI released a surveillance image of the suspected shooter. Cox said that a partner who has not been identified by authorities, who now has, by the way, is in the process of transitioning from male to female and helped investigators. That person has been very cooperative with authorities, Cox said. When Robinson's arrest was first announced, Cox said at a press conference that Robinson's roommate had no knowledge of the crime and provided investigators with Discord messages allegedly sent by Robinson, which authorities claim discussed details related to the shooting. I don't know how to take that one, I'm not going to be completely honest. So, on the text messages, there's the messages. Inversionism says the text between Robinson and his trans roommate are totally unbelievable and reads like it was contrived by an intel agency to close the case. No one, especially someone who got a 34 on his ACT, would be dumb enough to go to such things. To cover up his assassination, then just openly admit to everything in great detail in writing on the internet. Continuing where we picked off on. Roommate says, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week. I believe I can get close but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot. I don't want to chance it. I am wishing I'd circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried that what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in the bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope that they don't find prints. How the heck will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left the rifle, or was the rifle wrapped in a towel? Remember how I was engraving bullets? The messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge ooh on Fox News, I might have a stroke. Alright, gonna have to leave it. This really effing sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily buy it myself either. Reddit Lies, on the other hand, takes it hook, line, and sinker. I'm on team I think the texts were genuine because I've spent years watching autistic shut-ins, Redditors, talk to each other. For the uninitiated, picture an introverted theater kid. I don't know, I still think that's out of the realm of possibility and reality for this. ABC, however, is gushing over this. ABC News is gushing over the text sent between Kirk's killer and his trans lover. The texts were very touching in a way that many of us didn't expect. He was speaking so lovingly about his partner. Let's watch.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was tough.
We have seen an alleged murder.
Yeah, they really, really want you to believe these things. I'm on the fence about it myself. I can see Reddit Lies' point, but still, this just doesn't read like anything. The thing that got me was, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. The big question is always the financial one. Who gets the $1 million plus reward offered for the capture of Charlie Kirk shooting suspect Tyler Robinson? From Chris Nessie. More than $1 million was offered for the capture of Kirk's killer hours after the influencer was assassinated. And the big question is now whether suspect Robinson's own father could collect, or even if he would try to. Robinson was turned over to authorities by his dad on September 11th, the day after the killing. Questions online have swirled around whether Robinson's father would be eligible for the reward, given his offspring is accused of doing the heinous killing, if he even attempted to net it. I don't know. Because I don't know what the rules are for collecting, especially if it is direct family member, but I mean, you'd think you'd still want them to do it if they had the goods. The paying out of reward money to crime and terrorism tipsters is usually managed by Rewards for Justice, a program under the U.S. State Department. Actually getting paid for the reward is quite a process, requiring those eligible to navigate layers of red tape. According to the Rewards for Justice's FAQ, the individual who provides the information leading to an arrest or conviction cannot nominate themselves. Rather, a U.S. investigating agency such as the FBI, Department of War, or U.S. Embassy abroad must nominate the would-be recipient. An interagency committee then evaluates the info provided by the agency who nominated the awardee. Excuse me. The merits of paying the reward are discussed, and the committee presents a recommendation to the Secretary of State. So, by the way, if they do, and this is something to remember as you go forward, even if they offer a $1,000 reward, a $100,000 reward, $1 million reward for the person of interest that they're trying to get to, the state is still going to try to get out of paying you, and the national government is still going to try to get out of paying you. They're going to do everything they can to try not to part with that money. I had this one that I was interested in. Kash Patel's remarks could torpedo Tyler Robinson case, per a legal analyst, from Robert Alexander. Legal analysts are warning that the public statements by Director Kash Patel about evidence in the shooting could jeopardize the state prosecution of Tyler Robinson by creating grounds for defense motions tied to pre-hearing coverage and due process concerns. Those are all actually realistic concerns. It's entirely possible, by the way, that that's what happened in the Derek Chauvin case and in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, even though Kyle himself was acquitted in that case. Because it was so high profile, that meant it was hard for anybody to be objective in it one way or the other. You know, just like the President of the United States, the chief law enforcement officer going on TV and telling you that Rittenhouse was guilty as hell in the midst of his trial. That in and of itself could have been a mistrial. How do you have an unbiased jury at that point? And it probably doesn't help either that NBC News tried to chase down the jury bus to see where everybody lived for totally journalistic purposes and not to try to tell activists where they lived. Patel publicly discussed details, including a recovered note and a DNA links to items found at the scene. Comments that analysts are saying risk violating the DOJ's norms on pretrial statements and could prompt motions to move a venue or otherwise challenge the fairness of the trial. And the question comes there is, in a situation like that, what venue do you move to? It's the same thing with the Chauvin case. I know they were trying to get a re-venue change, mostly so that people didn't have to walk through the aftermath and even the ongoing protests about George Floyd to get to the jury pool and decide whether or not they were going to be safe going home or not. But at the time, because they wrapped that one up pretty quickly, where would they have changed the venue to that wouldn't have had another protest sitting outside? In all seriousness, where would they have changed the venue to? District Court in Madison? You'll have the same protests sitting outside. Milwaukee, same protests. Des Moines, you'll have the same protests. Dubuque, you'll have the same protests. Where do you move it to? Where do you move this particular trial to? Public disclosures about evidence by senior law enforcement officials can shape public perception, influence juror pools, and create legal openings for defense teams. Plus let the defense know what it is that you have so they can start making their case beforehand. So one of the things that I liked about the Rittenhouse case, prosecution and defense on both sides, is that we saw a lot of camera angles at that point that we had not yet seen. So there was a lot of other evidence that was not publicly and openly discussed that they attempted to use on both sides too, to try to both put the kid in jail but also try to exonerate him. In a high-profile homicide case that could carry the death penalty in Utah, legal practitioners say careful control of investigative details is standard practice to protect defendants' Sixth Amendment rights and the integrity of the trial process. Analysts now warn that Patel's on-air summaries may force prosecutors to respond in court, potentially complicating an already fast-moving and closely watched prosecution. Yes, that is also true, by the way. Alright, so we know what happened. 33-hour manhunt that ended with his father persuaded him to surrender to police. Kash Patel went on Fox News Monday and said investigators recovered a note he attributed to the suspect and referenced DNA evidence found on such items as the screwdriver and the towel. So now again, the defense knows exactly what to look for and what to defend for instead of being surprised at trial. I wonder if somebody's going to pay Robinson's bail. That I'd be the most curious about. I wonder if he's even being held with bail. Alright, we've got reaction to this, which I thought was stupid. And even immediately on this, I looked at this and I said, dude, seriously? A bomb threat? And there's never ever been any credible evidence that some right-winger has perpetrated these bomb threats. And it's always right after something that's made the right mad that you suddenly get these crops of bomb threats in places that you wouldn't even think to. So they got the DNC, but then they told on themselves a little bit, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. From the Hill, bomb threat at DNC headquarters found to not be credible. Imagine that, from Carolyn Vakil. A bomb threat directed towards the headquarters of the DNC was found not to be credible, but the National Party and Capitol Police said Thursday an incident that came up less than 24 hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This afternoon, there was a bomb threat at the DNC headquarters that was determined to not be credible by U.S. Capitol Police, a DNC spokesperson said in a statement. Out of an abundance of caution, Capitol Police conducted an interior sweep of the building. As Ken Martin, DNC chair, he said, "Political violence in every form has no place in our country," the spokesperson continued. "We're grateful to the U.S. Capitol Police and DNC building security for responding quickly and professionally." And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that it got swept quickly and professionally, that everybody is out and safe at this point. I'm glad for a lot of things of that. I'm glad that there was no credible bomb threat to go through this. If they would have left it at just the DNC headquarters, it might have been still a tall tale for me, a stretch for me, but I might have actually believed it. But as usual, they go too far. They take the story and they move one little bit past it. Harry Sisson coming on and talking about this one as well, even though we don't have a suspect, a motive, or anything of the sorts. People have declared a war on the left and declared that Charlie Kirk's murder is the Democrat Party's fault. I hope people pushing this soon realize how dangerous this type of rhetoric is. And this was still on September 10th. And this was when they knew who Tyler Robinson was, but the rest of the world didn't. So they knew he was going to come out as a right-wing adjacent individual. Some of the other things, speaking about the Rittenhouse trial. If glorifying political violence is bad, why did you make Kyle Rittenhouse a celebrity? To which I actually honestly respond, we didn't. You did. If the left had stopped talking about Kyle Rittenhouse the moment the trial was over, he'd be living in obscurity somewhere in Wyoming, hunting rabbits and crap. But every time something like this comes up, you bring it up. And yes, that actually goes to the right-wingers too, who wrote songs and ballads and everything commemorating the kid. No, let him be a kid at this point. He still has to go back and live with this, and yeah, if you continue bringing him up and making a celebrity out of him, this kid's 15 minutes of fame should have been over. Let's see, his trial was in October. It should have been over by January of that year. And we should not be talking about this person. Not only that, that wasn't a political violence situation, even if this was otherwise accurate. You made it political when people tried to say that he shot black people in the middle of a protest in cold blood and, oh my God, state lines, cruise, I'm going to cruise. But there's no reason that we should even be talking about this right now. It's the same thing I talked about at the top of the show, where a lot of this stuff is trying to be rebranded as right-wing violence, where the Josh Shapiro governor's mansion burning, the arson there, was openly a left-wing Marxist Gaza kid. He openly said, I did it, and I did it for Gaza. And they're still trying to rebrand this as right-wing violence. And the Vince Bolter stuff for Melissa Hortman, that's inconclusive at best. The political affiliation of Vince Belter, there's so many ways that it could go. Again, appointed by Tim Walz, apparently openly conservative. But there's always the open question of were there actually open orders to go after Amy Klobuchar by Tim Walz? Because he said that right out on camera, that that's what he was told to do. I don't know if it's true or not. The whole thing was ripped out of the national attention before we could get a proper investigation into this and make a determination for ourselves. Alright, from Axios. Capitol Police respond, we know that one. Non-credible threat at the DNC. DNC headquarters search for bomb due to threat letter being not credible. And again, if they stopped at the DNC, I'd have said this is actually believable. But when you go back and you try to make this about race, and nobody was talking about whether or not the Charlie Kirk shooter was black. Nobody was talking about that. The left made it about black. Hoax threats target HBCUs, causing disruption on campuses across the United States. My big response to that when they started talking about that was, number one, none of this was ever about race. In fact, most of the people that I talked to said that this was most likely a lily white, left-wing Democrat from a trust fund family. If it does turn out to be what the actual narrative is. There was no mention of blackness anywhere on the internet over who it was that took the shot that took Charlie Kirk. But apparently, there was talk about it somewhere, at least if that's what security management wants us to believe. IS Online, if that's what they want us to believe. That these people were so upset about Charlie Kirk that they called bomb threats into historically black colleges and universities. Dude, if you'd have left it at the DNC, I might have believed you. But you just had to take it a step too far. And my big reaction to that was, it's not the fact that it was brought up, because you knew it was going to have to be, because everything has to be about race. Do you know a MAGA person who can actually name more than one HBCU, even if they can name one HBCU. Because I don't know any of them that can name a single HBCU at all. I said that right too, Area System 2. The DNC and HBCUs were targeted with fake bomb threats today. They were forced to shut down and deal with them because some lunatic called them in. The idea this stuff doesn't happen to Democrats or people on the left is not based in fact. To which I responded and I said, if your people had kept the HBCU out of it, people might have believed you, but the Dem operative that called it in had to make it about race. No MAGA supporter can even name an HBCU. I got no traction, by the way. I got 14 views. Because I am not verified. There was a bomb underneath one of the Fox TV vans in Utah from CNN, two arrested after having incendiary device found under local Fox TV news van in Utah. Apparently this was a real bomb as well, per the DOJ. Two suspects are in custody after an incendiary device was found under a vehicle belonging to KSTU, a local TV station known as Fox 13 News Utah. The device had been lit but failed to function as designed, per court records obtained by CNN affiliate KUTV. The device was discovered in Salt Lake City on Friday, 2 days after Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, about 45 minutes south of the Utah Capitol. KUTV reported that two suspects were arrested after the FBI agents and local bomb squads converged on a home in Magna, Utah. Photos and videos from the scene showed anti-Trump signs on display outside of his home. So, I mean, of course. I'd like to see the evidence, of course, that this was the people that put the bomb out there, but tensions are running high right now. But when I see stuff like that too, if we can confirm that it's real, then that starts to tell me that this was more than just one person acting alone, and there was a plan to be major shifts and changes with this. Alright, are you ready for the part that I hate about this? And this does appear to be driven by a mechanical form of politics. Olivia Krolchik, with a cross on her profile on top of it, showing a lot of compassion for her neighbors. I've officially contacted 471 employees. Still more to do. My fingers hurt, my eyes hurt. I've never had screen time this high, but I'm alive to complain about it. It's all worth it, all for Charlie. Olivia goes on to say, for everyone asking how I do it, I have pre-written script for email and simply attach the screenshots. Takes less than a minute, to find employers from name search, and typically my followers have been providing both the screenshots and employers. Takes max a couple minutes. Because yes, our new fun thing to do after the housefly comes into the office, our new fun thing to come back out and do is to call the employers of people who are not doing the political thing that you want them to do, or doing the political thing that you don't want them to do in this case, and tell them how bad they are and ask them if they want to be associated with the employee who's doing said bad thing. I cannot get behind this. I don't care if my viewer count drops to 0 when I bring this up and say this. I cannot in any way, shape, or form get behind any of this. This is crap. Because people like Olivia Krolchik spent the better part of the Biden term complaining about the same thing happening to them over mask mandates, over speaking out against the government, or saying things that are generally conservative. They called it cancel culture. They called it a violation of free speech. Do I think some of the things that people are saying on Reddit and TikTok about Charlie Kirk are horrendous? Absolutely, yes. But I'll defend to the death their right to say them. And yes, if their employers want to get involved in that, then that's on them to do their homework about going and finding out that they're doing this. Yes, there are employers that don't want to have that PR nightmare. I get that. That is on you, because it's your brand. It's your thing to do. There is no reason for people like this to come back out here and accelerate the process. All you're doing when you do this, by the way, is you're making more radicals who are getting ready to go back and take a shot at another conservative influencer. Because those evil conservatives are now spreading around hate. If it's that far out of line, go back and report it to the platform that's on, because it's probably against the terms of use, which I will admit are often enforced differentially. But turn around and turn it over to the platform. Why do you want to go back and stalk and dox people over this? I am sorry, I take this one personally. And we'll go back and we'll bring up the Discord again on this. Those of you who are in the Discord, you've read the rules. The rules. It's the top channel out there in your ass when you come in. Go read the rules. Make sure you're familiar with them. Really, the only thing that you can get banned in my Discord for is doxing. If you get banned for something else, you have to have been really, really, really screwing up for a long time and had multiple warnings. Because I believe in your right to speak freely and say crap, even crap that I disagree with, in my free speech platform. The two things that I say is abide by Discord's terms of service and don't dox people, because I want people to be able to say these things and get them out in the open in ways that won't affect them in real life. Because you have the freedom of speech to do so. Even if it sucks. Even if your speech sucks. And they're going deep in it, which I guess there's probably going to be some job openings out there, but I mean, not this way. Hey, here I am agreeing with a paid shill, Alex Cole, who I've criticized in numerous posts. Imagine whining about free speech every day, then building a blacklist of people exercising free speech. Mega logic is undefeated. Jack Unheard saying a searchable database of more than 20,000 people celebrating Kirk's murder will soon be available. Why? I want somebody to legitimately explain to me why this is such a problem. When you sat and complained about it for 3 years. When it was something that you wanted to go back out and do. I don't want to do this one yet. From CBS News, workers fired, placed on leave for Charlie Kirk comments after assassination. From Megan Cerullo. The killing of Charlie Kirk is sparking debate about political violence in the U.S., as well as the kinds of professional repercussions from employers who speak out about the conservative activist's death and other hot-button issues might face. A number of businesses and other organizations have shown employees the door this week because of their public remarks about Kirk, who was assassinated on Wednesday. While giving a speech at Utah Valley University, among those to lose their jobs or face sanctions, a political pundit, a university employee, a sports reporter, and a U.S. Secret Service agent. Private employers have the law on their side when it comes to removing a worker who makes public statements that the business views as potentially harmful. According to legal experts, a private company can generally fire an employee for public comments, even political ones, if those comments are deemed to harm the company's reputation, violate the workplace policy, or disrupt the business, workplace attorney Marjorie Masador told CBS Money Watch. Vanessa Matzis-McCready, Vice President of Human Resources for Engage PEO, a provider of HR solutions, said that the high-profile figures in particular must tread lightly when commenting publicly on politically charged issues. In today's climate, there's very little tolerance for that. She said employers are very mindful of what's being associated with them, and they're trying to be as apolitical as possible. Again, there's a reason that I conduct my online activity in such the way that I do. Yes, the drop of the first name was about my stalker ex-girlfriend. That's why what you see is a J instead of what the J stands for. Otherwise, I'd be particularly somewhat open about at least that part of my name. I was named after a pretty cool guy on the first part of my name, but, just at that point. Now I've got somebody who literally tried to kill me, searching for me out on the internet, and trying to find somebody who's associated by that first name. With that being said, last name is left out, and I make sure to leave the employer information out as well while I'm commenting online. Because yes, my employer does have an image that it is that they're trying to keep. Mostly apolitical about things, because being political about things is damaging to them. And I don't talk about what I do here at work either. There are only a handful of people that I work with that know that this is what I do on my off time. But I will never associate myself with my employer on X. Even after I stopped using the Boomer Book. I went into Boomer Book and changed my employment to a political organization that I had partnered with at the time. That's still what it shows. Because my, quote, real-life big boy job doesn't need to be associated with what I say here, even though it's mild as crap. I'm anti-political. Number of employees in a range of industries, as well as in academia, are finding themselves in hot water over remarks they made about Kirk's death or his political beliefs. NX Sports, an online sports news site focused in Arizona, announced the firing of Gerald Bourgeois after he said on social media that in his since-deleted post, refusing to mourn a life devoted to that cause is not the same as celebrating gun violence. Now again, that's on PHNX Sports to decide whether or not that goes against the public image that they want to go back and put out. That particular comment, I would have probably looked past. I'm not going to lie. I would have probably looked at that and said, no, that's not too far out of the realm of possibility. It's pushing it, admittedly. But it's not where I would go with it. I wouldn't fire somebody over that particular one. Truly don't care if you think it's insensitive or poor timing to decline to respect an evil man who died, he added. Again, I don't know that I would consider that to be a terminable offense. It's out there, 100%. That's on the edge at most. Maybe that's the cleanest one that can be put on CBS, I don't know. Bourgeois declined to comment when reached by CBS News. MSNBC said it cut ties with Matthew Dowd after he said in an on-air conversation Kirk had pushed the incendiary speech that the hateful thoughts led to hateful words, which led to hateful actions in his public statement. Dowd, yeah, that one was a kind of, he had that one coming. That was a how short was her skirt moment. But again, this is somebody whose public profile persona is being associated with the brand that employs him. When I look at this, I'm thinking, okay, like doctors, electricians, factory workers, convenience store workers, people like that who are coming out and getting fired for their brands associating with them when they have very, very, very little large public sway. I would say 9 times out of 10, I already know what the political thoughts of Charlie Kirk are, of the girl with the septum piercing and the blue hair who works at the local convenience store. And anybody with half a brain already knows what her political opinions are. Especially as far as it goes associated with Charlie Kirk. You know that coming in, that there's going to be a certain amount of that, and it's probably going to be aimed online. I saw a very, very interesting take from an e-whore on Instagram about this whole thing. And I thought about naming her when I did this and putting the post up to talk about it on things that I hate. But I decided not to do that. She can languish in obscurity. Well, not obscurity, because very, very large following Instagram account. But I can go back and languish in this. I'm not going to come back and advertise this back out. But there was a long diatribe that she put out. And I kind of knew that's where she was going to go, was with the Charlie Kirk stuff and how hateful he was and everything else and how bad he was and how it's okay to want to see him die and not mourn him and everything else. And she went into all this kind of stuff. But her big diatribe on that was going on about how the online culture has made people like Charlie Kirk feel like they're your friend and that you have to stand up for them and defend them because that person's your friend because you know him, you follow everything that he does, and he's a smaller influencer and a bunch of other stuff. And I could not help but say in the back of my mind, and I didn't post it as a comment, I listened to the video and I said, meanwhile, you have an OnlyFans and your entire business model is convincing guys that they have a chance if they pay you $5.99 a month to look at your butt. So you're going to sit here and complain about Charlie Kirk making people feel like they're actually his friends because he speaks to the things that are important to them online. Meanwhile, yeah, you provide the girlfriend experience for $20 a month. There's a bit of a double standard here. Vibrating Lights says, what did I miss? Probably about 2 hours of the program. We're getting down there. It's a new name I've seen on here, Vibrating Light. Are you recently changed screen name or are you new here? Feel free to make yourself at home. Links are in the description. You can be in the Discord, review the rules, obviously. Dowd, the former chief strategist for Republican President George W. Bush, apologized in a Substack post on Friday, saying he hadn't meant to imply Kirk was to blame for the violence that killed him. Although that's pretty much what we all took out of it. First time? Well, feel free to hang out. There's links for the YouTube, the Twitch, D-Live in the chat, the Discord. You can go back and join us for that. Read the rules and don't dox anybody. The right-wing media mob ginned up, went after me on a plethora of platforms, and MSNBC reacted to that mob. He runs Substack. So Dowd has gone with the, I haven't done anything wrong. It was the right-wing mob that came back and did it to me. Goats and Scarves has joined us as well. Good afternoon. It is afternoon already. It's 1 o'clock. No wonder I'm hungry. The bowl of oatmeal didn't go too far, apparently. Other organizations have also taken action on workers who spoke out against Ms. Kirk. Middle Tennessee State University said in a statement they fired a university employee over inappropriate and callous comments on social media concerning the horrific and tragic murder of Charlie Kirk. But again, I ask the question, per the inappropriate and callous comments from an employee, they don't specify the employee. Is it a professor who's actually representing your brand? Or is it a janitor somewhere who has a problem with what Charlie Kirk had to say and said something about it online? Because those are two different positions and two different levels of how your university sees. And also then the question comes is, did the university find this particular person's online presence and see what he was saying, or did somebody go back and tattle on him? In a Facebook post, the U.S. Secret Service said it placed an agent who expressed negative opinions about Kirk on leave. The Secret Service will not tolerate behavior that violates our code of conduct. This employee was immediately put out on administrative leave, and an investigation has been begun, the U.S. Secret Service spokesperson said in a statement. That I'm actually okay with. The Secret Service themselves should be politically neutral. They take care of presidents of both parties. To see a comment like that, I think, would go against the mission of that. Because if you're saying something like that about Charlie Kirk, then, would you be the person who looks the other way when somebody comes in with a rifle to go after J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, whoever else, Republican, is being watched over? Similarly, if somebody said something celebrating the death of, let's say, Hassan Piker online, and old Sleepy Joe is in office, would you trust that Secret Service agent to be protecting Sleepy Joe? Let's see. United Airlines told CBS it took action against employees who the company said publicly commented on Kirk's death. Our mission at United Airlines is to connect people and unite the world, so we've been clear with our customers and employees there's zero tolerance for politically motivated violence or any attempt to justify it, the carrier said in a statement to CBS News. Again, is this your customer service representative? Is this the pilot? Or is this the person who cleans the plane while it's landed? A Secretary of Transportation, Duffy, applauded United for doing what's right by placing pilots. Okay, so they're actually saying pilots on this one. That is somebody who openly represents your brand. So legal protections, First Amendment protections, are generally limited for workers in the private sector per U.S. attorneys. Employers often have strong legal basis to terminate employees if their public comments, especially on a high-profile and sensitive topic like a murder, or, like I said before, people who are public-facing employees of said company, cause reputational damage or customer backlash for the company, Mesidor said. And yes, that's understandable. You have a right to free speech, but your employer has a right to free association as well. And it'd be very different, too. Like if I'm standing here wearing a t-shirt that has company redacted sitting on it and saying, hey, I hate what the Democrat Party is doing to our country right now. then yes, they might not want to do anything to me. Or want to, take action against me. But as hard as I've tried to make sure that they are never associated with what's happening while I'm sitting here, they should have no reason to. And again, I've been very mild in my commentary. Some states like California, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, South Carolina, and West Virginia do have laws to protect employees from being fired for their conduct off the job, including their political speech and activity, but most do not. Maynard Nexon attorney Andrew Craigie told CBS Money Watch that workers at private employers typically have little protection for punishment for their public comments. And again, a lot of that is you bring it on yourself when you go on your Facebook and put your employer information right in there and then go start saying a bunch of stuff that is hateful towards other people. Because people are going to turn around and associate that back with the employer. Newsweek specifying pilots, teachers, professors face losing jobs over Charlie Kirk posts. We talked a bit about that. DC has actually gone so far, canceling a comic book series after the writer posts about Charlie Kirk's death on social media. Again, a prominent writer for a very, very well-known brand. DC, known for being more neutral. Marvel is a little bit more activistic and left-wing, I would say. I don't know that Marvel would have taken the same step. But DC seeing this, saying, hey, this person's saying this online under his name, which is printed on the bottom of every comic book. Are we going to get a boycott? What's going on here? From Dan Hesching over at CNN. DC Comics has canceled the just-released Red Hood comic book series after author Gretchen Felker Martin made comments about Charlie Kirk's death on social media. In since-deleted posts captured in screen grabs and shared by other social media users, Felker Martin allegedly wrote on social media after the news of Kirk's death, "Hope the bullet's okay." Felker Martin, who identifies as transgender, also referred to Kirk as Nazi bitch, and I quote, I think some people like that typically have burner accounts that they come back and they do this kind of stuff on because their real names are so associated with their brand. No, I don't think it was an inside job, but I do think that there were some inconsistencies that make that they have help. All right. Some Pam Bondi news. Pam Bondi's hate speech comments lead even some conservatives to cry foul. This is an op-ed from Aaron Blake. Within hours of Charlie Kirk's assassination last week, Trump signaled a rather curious crackdown. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it. There was no evidence. I'm sorry, no, that's not Trump voice anymore. There was no evidence last week that the shooter was anything other than a lone wolf actor. And there still isn't, but Trump said its response would broadly target lots of supposed culprits in political violence. Yeah, he confessed, stop looking. It wasn't difficult to see how such a thing could get out of hand, and the admin has done little in the days since to disabuse anybody of the notion that Trump, who has demonstrably highly selective views on free speech, government weaponization, and political violence, I mean, there's nothing inaccurate in that statement, and political violence, would use Kirk's killing as a pretext to punish his enemies. Conservative activists are already drawing attention to random people who celebrated Kirk's death online, while some GOP lawmakers are pushing for employers to fire workers who posted things such as a lack of sympathy for Kirk's murder. Even AG Bondi and the White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller have criticized employees who allegedly refused to print posters honoring Kirk, with Bondi saying they could be prosecuted. Why? Why could they be prosecuted for that? Let the employers deal with that. There are some employers that don't want to be associated with political speech. Trump on Monday said he considered naming far-left anti-fascism movement Antifa as domestic terrorists. And people familiar with the discussion said he could begin rolling out actions targeting liberal organizations as soon as this week. And in the same Monday Oval Office event, the president responded to a conservative journalist who said that anti-war protests near the White House still have their First Amendment rights by saying, "Yeah, well, I'm not so sure." Through it all, many on the right largely shrugged. But Bondi on Monday made it so that some of them could no longer shrug. They just cried foul over her comments on a podcast that the DOJ would go after hate speech. I'm going to say the exact same thing that I say when it goes the other way. Hate speech has to be protected by the First Amendment. As much as you disagree with it, as much as you don't like it, it has to be protected by the First Amendment. Because that means that we have to appoint somebody who is going to do so on political grounds to determine what is actually hate speech. That's kind of good, because I know Vong's written me a book over here on why I'm wrong on this. He's already told me and written a book to say that I'm wrong because he doesn't want to share a country with these people, which is fine. That's your right to come back out and say this. The issue at hand here, again, is it's still all protected speech at some point. Yes, the employers have the freedom of association with each other, with their employees. And that's something that we have to deal with on the private sector. But if you're going to determine that saying something about Charlie Kirk's death is hate speech, then that means that we have to have an arbitrator at the government who's going to be motivated by politics to determine what hate speech is. And that is a dangerous situation to be in. It's just like when people have talked about a mental test to determine whether or not somebody should own a gun. I'm not 100% opposed to a mental test for gun ownership. The thing that I'm opposed to is the people that are arbitrating the test, who come in and they're the end-all be-all on who gets to own a gun and who doesn't, and, oh, hey, you voted for Trump in the last election? Mental illness denied. Oh, hey, you decided to protest a mask mandate? Mental illness denied. Oh, thing that goes against political party that I like? Hate speech, prosecution. The National Review's Charlie C.W. Cook wagered that Supreme Court would reject Bondi's view 9-0. Yes, they would, by the way. She should know this, Fox News analyst Britt Hume said about hate speech being protected by the Constitution. Conservative radio host Eric Erickson wagered that such standard could lead to prosecutions of preachers for opposing gay marriage. Yeah, when the wrong people are in power, absolutely. Vibrating Light says, because this one stinks to high heaven, post-like psyop. The right is being played perfectly. Yeah, they're being backed deep into a corner. On that. Even vehemently pro-Trump pundits flatly rejected it. Charlie Kirk literally died defending the principle that Pam Bondi is trashing, said right-wing influencer Hans Mankey. Mankey? Is that how you pronounce that? I don't know. It's just unreal. All caps are the only solution, Arvold. The pushback was apparently enough that Bondi attempted to clarify her remarks later Tuesday, telling Axios the DOJ isn't prosecuting alleged hate speech and will only prosecute statements that incite violence. I still have problems with that as well. But there is legal standing for that. Again, I feel like there is room for that to be politicized. I mean, there are enough people out there who are celebrating Kirk's death right now that are saying that his speech itself incited violence. So it would not be protected under that standard under a left-wing DOJ. It's not the action necessarily that I have a problem with, it's the question of who's judging it. Alright, let's get off of this. Libs of TikTok with our favorite member of my state over here, Minocqua Brewing Company. Attention everyone in Wisconsin. A Wisconsin-based woke progressive brewing company slams Charlie in a deranged rant following his assassination. Share this with everyone you know in the area. Why? We already know what this dude is, by the way. You share it all around, he's going to continue to do it. Hi folks, Kirk here from Minocqua Brewing Company. I had a draft already written for today's post, but I threw it out because I wanted to write about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Every time a kid got killed over the last 20 years in a school shooting, my heart broke a little. Every time I heard the twisted lie that guns weren't the problem by every white ring talking head, immediately after a school shooting, my broken heart hardened a little. When it comes to finding empathy for a guy whose purported mission was to manipulate our kids to embrace hate, along with teaching them to double down on gun lust after every mass shooting, I simply don't have it. My heart is hard for men like Charlie Kirk simply because they vote differently than me. I mean, simply because I spend all my empathetic reserves trying to keep it soft for folks who are hurting because of men like Charlie Kirk. So, F Charlie Kirk. Thoughts and prayers, fix our gun laws despite the fact that he wanted them broken. He didn't deserve to die, just like all those kids did deserve to die. Time to move on. His assassination is only worth about 6 sentences of my time. It's actually milder than I thought it was going to be. I chose to spend my time and energy fighting in America, for an America where men like Charlie Kirk are pushed back into their basements because Christian nationalistic bigotry is no longer socially acceptable. That's why I sell progressive beer. No, you sell progressive beer because no other brewery will hire you. Because you've been public like this. That's why I created the Minocqua Marketplace, which gives businesses who refuse to support right-wing extremism a platform to thrive and gives consumers a way to collectively starve fascism. That's why I built 2 tap rooms in Wisconsin that encourage progressives, with only a little empathy left to give, to fill each other's buckets with hope and art. That's why I raise money for my super PAC, so we can throw sand in the gears of the ice and buy enough time to beat back fascism in the 2026 election. I want to talk about that, but I want to get through just a couple more things here. By the way, that's where I choose to spend my time, and that choice is what keeps my now compartmentalized heart a little bit softer. Again, this libs at TikTok thought we were doing something. We all in the area know who this guy is. We know who Kirk Bakestad is. He's a jackass. But to throw gears and try to salvage the 2026 election kind of goes on to this article. I think this is where I'm going to call it the Charlie Kirk stuff here, because we're at 2.5 hours. I want to get finished up here at some point. But I want to talk about this. Revolver. Tens of thousands. Hashtag walk away after seeing celebrations of Charlie Kirk's assassination. This is part of the reason that I don't want to necessarily discourage these people the way that people like my friend Vaughn want to come back and discourage them and cause them potential harm financially and otherwise in their real lives for coming back and speaking their true feelings about this. On September 10th, pretty much as soon as Charlie Kirk died, the first thought that came out of my head was, well, Democrats just lost the midterms. And Revolver coming back out and saying the same thing kind of leads me in the same direction, but I don't 100% know that that's going to be the full-on issue with this. Now, what I mean with this, you're seeing a bunch of people walking away, people seeing who actually is on the progressive left, where some of this hate is coming from, and what people who are purported to be representative of the party actually believe. And they don't want to come back and be associated. Now, some of them may still go back and vote Democrat in the privacy of the voting booth. I think a lot of people did that for Trump this past time through, where they said outright in the polls and to the pollsters that they hated him, they didn't want to see anything, but realized, hey, I can do this in the privacy, nobody's going to know. I think there's going to be maybe some of that coming up in the upcoming midterm, but realistically, I think a lot of people don't want to be associated with this. Don't interrupt your enemies when they're making a mistake. While these people are coming out here and shouting how much they hate anybody who doesn't agree with them, how much they want anybody who doesn't agree with them to have it, to die, basically. How Charlie Kirk is only the first in a series of them, and an infinite amount of other stupid things that these people are saying. It's driving more and more, where I would say, normie liberals out of this party and saying, hey, are these guys the bad guys all along? Are these the people that I'm going to be associated with? Let them come back out and spew it. Let them come back out and say it. The left made this mistake for years, and that's what led to the MAGA movement. When you take away their voices, when you shove them down in the basement and say, you get no more free speech, you create more of them. They don't go away, they just become quieter about it and build a separate movement. When you kick them off the platforms, the YouTubes, the Twitches, and the big name platforms, they go to the Rumbles, they go to the Kicks, and they go to BitChute, and they spread an even harsher message. And they recruit more and more people. When you silence these guys, you make them the martyrs. You make them sympathetic, saying evil, big, right-wing government just wants to shut me up. They hate free speech. Meanwhile, you're spreading this insanely vile message out there that is out there, turning people off to your movement. And again, there is a lot of time for Republicans to screw things up between now and 2026. It's only the middle, or I guess getting towards the end of 2025. There's a lot of time to screw everything up between now and the midterms. But I really feel if the election were held tomorrow, Democrats would get a blowout. They'd get blown completely out of every level of government in the country. So yes, let them make their views known. Let people decide whether or not they want to be associated with it. The Fed lowered the rate another quarter point. I guess I still would have thought it would have been more, but I'm not sure. Just a bit from the Revolver piece. It's a massive trend sweeping TikTok right now where lifelong Democrats and even self-described liberals, nose rings and all, are announcing they're done with the Democrat Party. What brought all this on? Watching their fellow Dems openly celebrate the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So yes, your messaging is turning people off to your movement. Make the decision how you want to come back out and combat this or not. Because it might win you elections for generations to come. Alright, that's what I have on the Charlie Kirk stuff. I do want to touch on just a couple things here before we head out of here. Bashir Stan, apparently somebody who loves Andy Bashir. Every Republican in a competitive race just banged their heads against a wall 50 times. Because Politics and Poll Tracker is telling us Trump has announced that Republicans will be holding a midterm convention. Let's read just a little bit from NBC. We'll do NBC on this one. Trump says Republicans will hold a midterm convention next year. From Zoe Richards. President Trump announced Tuesday that Republicans will hold a midterm convention next year to showcase his admin's accomplishments as the GOP seeks to increase its slim majority in the House through redistricting. The announcement made on Truth Social did not specify when or where the convention would be held, saying that only those details were still to be determined. The Republicans are going to do a midterm convention in order to show the great things that we've done since the election of 24, Trump wrote, adding, "It will be quite the event and very, very exciting." The RNC declined to provide additional details, but the RNC spokesperson, Kirsten Pelz, said in a statement that Trump is leading with bold, innovative ideas to energize our party and keep us on the path to victory. Democrats said they're also considering a midterm convention. I want Democrats to do this. I don't know. One of the hard parts politically in drawing eyes to your own accomplishments on a midterm with the way that our body politic works is the fact that when you want to win an election, the easiest way to do that is to not make it a referendum on yourself. It sucks that that's the way that our politics has to be organized right now because, yes, I would love to see more and more opportunities for people to say what it is, not necessarily of what they've done, but what it is that they plan to do and how they plan to make life better instead of just protect you from the evil other. And possibly if we were in a better political situation, I think that would be good. Now, doing so, if Republicans do it right, could actually come back out and help them. They do have a very, very slim hold on all levels of government right now, though. So making something and a venue and a review on the Democrats would be a very hard position for congressional Republicans and the White House to come back out and do at this point. They don't have open latitude to do whatever it is that they want because of the Senate filibuster, admittedly. But the only thing they can come back out and say is, we tried to do this and Democrats just blocked us. which is the Democrat playbook forever. Oh, we wanted to enshrine Roe versus Wade, but we got blocked. Oh, we wanted to go back and give you Medicare for all, but evil Republicans blocked us. And we're starting to see where that's not a good political platform. The problem that I have with this is not the fact that I don't think this is a good idea. This is how I want politics to be. A referendum on what it is that your party did and what you plan to continue to do if you have the opportunity to get more power. Because what I've seen for pretty much my entire life is a referendum on, hey, this is what the other guy did. Vote for me and I'll protect you from the evil other. Over and over and over again. My platform is I'm not the other guy. Over and over and over again. Democrats might be on the other foot on this one, trying to go with the old dirty trick. Hey, this is what evil Republican wants to do to you. So go back out. Because they don't have a lot of accomplishments right now. They don't. They haven't been in power. They haven't had the voting capacity to make any changes over this past term. The problem that I have with it on the RNC side is that Republicans, part of the reason that I am not one, have this special talent of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. They're on the front foot right now. They can come back out and they can say, hey, look at the accomplishments that we had. This is what we want to continue to do. Here's a detailed way that we want to do it. We're asking you to continue to let us be in power so we can go back and initiate this agenda. What it threatens to be, and I'm sure that there's going to be some interoperative dissent to this, what it threatens to be is, oh, look at what these evil Republicans prevented us from doing. Evil Democrat. Look at these evil Democrats. They prevented us this. They prevented us that. It's all the Democrats' fault. Look at the Democrats. Look at that. Look at them over there. When they're not in a political position. I don't know. This could go really, really well or really, really badly, and I don't think that there's a in-between between the two. And for right now, that is what I have on the news. We're going to skip out of the rest of this here. Let's do a couple things that I like and a couple things that I hate. And then let's finish out the day. Partially because I'm hungry, partially because I have to go to the bathroom. So we start off to close the show looking at the Ferengi rules of acquisition. We look at one instance of a rule from the Ferengi religion that tells them how to associate with each other and other species of the galaxy. Following these rules, of course, will allow you to build social credit and bid on a better life in the divine treasury at the end of life. Every week we look at one of these. We root out the ones that are determined to be a mockery of capitalism, and look at stuff that we can actually provide and use in real life. So, we've looked at the 109th rule of acquisition. Dignity and empty sack is worth a sack. We talked a bit about that. Now we go on to the 110th rule of acquisition. Exploitation begins at home. This is from the Voyager episode, False Prophets. Following two Ferengi who were flung to the far side of the galaxy by a wormhole in Next Generation, where the crew of the Voyager has now discovered them acting as gods to a Bronze Age species on a remote planet in the Delta Quadrant. Exploitation begins at home. This is one of those that is mocking capitalism, but it brings up the idea that, it goes right on with the idea of the next one, the 111th rule of acquisition. Treat people in your debt like family. Exploit them. The people that you help you to get to the top often are your first family members, or your family members first. Your friends and your family members are the people who work for you when you're starting up a small business while you're climbing your way to the top. I know my one cousin did this a lot. I'm not talking about the younger one, who I'm very, very good friends with, but his older brother, who was a silent partner in the business that they ran, knowing full well that, at the time when I was living in Kenosha, having a hard time holding a gainful employment job, saying, hey, I'll throw you a little bit of cash under the table. You have to work your ass off for me, but here you go. Here's some cash. Do your thing. So yes, exploitation does begin at home, and when we do the 111th next week, we'll be talking about the basically same thing. 112 and 122 are the same. Yes, they are. And they're from the same DS9 episode as well. Which is why it's probably blacked out and not hyperlinked in the 122nd. Yeah, Arvel says it's that important. Alright, couple things that I hate. One of the biggest problems I've had with the Charlie Kirk thing is that it's let the conspiracy mind go free. And I'm not going to claim innocence on any of this because I have had a lot of conspiracy-minded thoughts about what happened with Charlie Kirk myself, specifically. But it was a time where screaming, "The Jews!" was the fringe thing that mainstream commentators tried to avoid at all costs. And now, with what happened to Charlie Kirk, because, at the time that it happened, he was starting to speak out against Mossad, admittedly, and the U.S. involvement in the Israeli war. Now the next question is the question that people are openly asking whether or not it was the people who we dare not mention on a YouTube video. And I'm seeing this not just from fringe people anymore. I've got plenty of them in the Discord who would come back and laud this, something like this. But it's mainstream. Middle-of-the-road conservatives are now coming out and saying the same things that people who are out at the fringe of conservative society and being relegated out to have been saying for years. And I don't know. This is one of those things where I say that conservatives are good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Whether or not it's true, and I'm not even going to try to comment unless I actually see major evidence of the involvement, whether or not it's true, when you start to go down this road as a mainstream conservative, that starts to get to the point where people start looking askance at your movement. The Patriotic Blonde, with a very long thread, with an initial very long tweet, basically saying it was the people whose religion originated in the Levant who killed Charlie Kirk, and then tried to have this one kid come back down and take the fall for it. This is how you lose the midterms, right here. Whether or not it's right or wrong, by the way. One thing that I'm not going to comment on. This right here is how you lose the midterms. By making yourself so politically untenable that people have no choice but to either vote Democrat or stay home. So, when you're watching, be cautious about this. This is a person, by the way, too, that I don't follow, the Patriotic Blonde. And it just kind of popped up on my feed out of nowhere. I would say probably a longer term account. No, only a couple years old, too. So, I have maybe a couple questions about what's going on with this and the sudden rise to prominence from this particular person. But that's something to watch for. Propaganda being spread just to try to come back out and take control of the narrative after the Charlie Kirk shooting threatens the electability of Democrats for probably 3-4 election cycles to come. Magatards over on X says, National Guard in Memphis, Tennessee has 2 tanks stolen overnight because someone left the keys in them? This is a clown administration. Turns out it was a video from a hip-hop music video from 2020. And we know this because I have somebody who's military and military adjacent in my Discord who has reminded everybody that there are no keys for a tank. You can't leave the keys in the tank and have somebody steal it because there are no keys for that. And if you steal it out of the yard and bust out the building it's held in, the fence that it's held in, then you're going to raise more suspicion. If you can get into where the tank is, then you champion your life at Metal Gear Solid. But they're trying to run the and this guy tries to double down the whole way too. Every time he gets called back out. Well, Trump just said this week that 300 million people died of drug use last year. That's why I'm okay to lie. Alright, now a couple things that I like. From 4029 News, Tyson Foods to stop using high fructose corn syrup and other ingredients. Adam Roberts, DMM, reporting. Tyson Foods announced it will stop using high fructose corn syrup by the end of the year. The company will also phase out sucralose, BHA, BHT, and titanium dioxide. Products under the Tyson, Jimmy Dean, Hillshire Farm, Wright, State Fair, Adele's, and IPB brands are among those who won't have those ingredients anymore. In May, Tyson announced that it will remove synthetic dye from its food products by the end of the year. I like this happening. I don't like the fact that it came down from government involvement. Excuse me. But let's be completely realistic. The fact that they were doing it to begin with was due to government involvement because corn subsidies made corn syrup way cheaper than any sort of natural sugar or natural ingredients. Corn binders made it easier to bread things like chicken nuggies and things like that. So this is a problem that stems from government involvement to begin with. And the free market should have been able to come back up and drive this all back out because, I mean, realistically, corn syrup is something that a lot of people I know want to come back out and avoid. That's why there was a rise of natural sugar, Mountain Dew, and Pepsi, and a bunch of other things like that. Because people legitimately don't want this kind of stuff in their food anymore. They've seen what it did to the millennial generation, the end of Gen X, and the way that their food pyramid went and worked with that, and yeah. I don't know what this is going to do with the price. I don't know what this is going to do with the price of corn, by the way. It might make it easier for us to get our hands on some nice fresh corn throughout the year, but this is definitely something to go back and watch, 100%. And I'd like to, because I like Tyson stuff here, I'd like to do a taste comparison after they come back and phase this stuff back all out. It's going to be a couple months before it goes and hits the store shelves. But I like the little pre-sauced wings, the frozen wings that they called them, the chicken nuggets. I liked those. I'd like to try them with regular sugar just to see if I like them more. We'll see what happens. Hey, here's an instance of don't interrupt your enemies when they're doing something stupid. This is for you conservatives. Kathy Hochul mocked after Mamdani refuses to back governor's re-election despite her endorsement in New York City mayor's race. So you sit back here and you try to appease to your far left to get them to vote for you. And the far left candidate you're trying to appease them with turns around and says, no, screw you, don't vote for this person, this corporate Democrat. This is what we're trying to go back and get rid of. Who could have seen any of this coming? From Carl Campanile and Matthew Fischetti, Zoran Mamdani refused to back Kathy Hochul for re-election after she gave the lefty Democrat mayoral nominee her coveted endorsement. Hochul said on Sunday, endorsing Mamdani in the November mayoral race, claiming to have found common ground with the Democratic Socialist, including on the issue of affordability. No, again, you're just saying those words because they sound good to the voters that you desperately need to stay in Albany. But Mamdani on Monday declined to return the favor and did not pledge the backing of Hochul's re-election next year, at least for the time being. So he's going to go back and try to convince somebody to go back and try to primary or run against her to try to out-left the party, and maybe upstate New York, maybe Albany will be in the hands of a Republican. I don't see that happening anytime soon, by the way. I think that's going to remain in deep, deep blue territory because of New York City, but it's still funny to come back out and think about. The apparent snub raised eyebrows, including from Elise Stefanik, a potential Republican gubernatorial opponent, who said it made Hochul look weak. Oh, it makes her look more than weak. Even Mamdani refused to support Hochul less than 24 hours after she endorsed him, the upstate congresswoman said in a statement on Tuesday on X. So, live by the sword, die by the sword. You did do this to yourself. Plain and simple. And the last one on things that I like. 6 NFL teams don't pay tribute to Charlie Kirk as others hold moments of silence. Now, coming back, seeing the stuff that was in the chat, I could see some people saying that, okay, we should go back and boycott these 6 teams. But again, this is freedom of speech. I like the fact that the other teams did come back and hold a moment of silence for Kirk. That was very uniting. It was, I know it probably made a lot of the more left-wing fans very angry, but it was a very, very unifying message, to say the least. And yeah, the other 6 teams, which I want to see who they are. Now, they're in very, very far left cities, I think, so that I think would be part of it. The Bengals, Cincinnati, that might be the one exception here. But the Detroit Lions, the Indianapolis... Alright, let's actually read the list before I make the determination of who's doing it because of where their stadium is located versus who's just not doing it because of ideological differences. The Bengals, Cincinnati, Detroit, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. Detroit, Minnesota, which is right in the middle of Minneapolis, by the way. Probably Pittsburgh. I don't know enough about Pittsburgh's political geography to say anything on that, but also Baltimore. Yeah, no crap they didn't want to go and hold a vigil for Charlie Kirk. I'd be more concerned if they did. Somebody would probably burn the stadium down if they tried. Cincinnati and Indianapolis. I'm a little bit more questioning about that. I think that might be more ideologically driven at that point. During the games on Sunday, the Jets, Cardinals, Dolphins, Saints, Titans, Chiefs, and Cowboys all held moments of silence for Kirk before their respective opening kickoffs, while the Steelers had flags at half-mast, per multiple reports. So, they get to exercise their free speech. I mean, again, as long as they didn't come out and say, oh, Charlie had it coming, I'm okay with them not making a moment of silence. They have to read the audience, they have to read their rooms. So, absolutely, 100%. Make the decision that's best for your team and the city that your fans have to go home in. Alright. Let's call it 3 hours. I said let's not do this for 3 hours, and hey, we did this for just short of 3 hours. 2 hours, 40 minutes. Do I have outro music? I have outro music. Alright, with that, we are out of here. Thank you everybody who came by and hung out in the live chat. Kept me honest, kept me going. It was a great time. I got to vent some of my frustrations, and yes, I know that I have some very, very deep ideological differences with free speech, especially with some of my listeners. I accept all that as well. But with that, we're out of here. Have a fantastic day, everybody. We will see you here next week, hopefully back on our regular Thursday rotation for, well, more of this. Still experimenting on the time. I might still try to go back on a Thursday and go with the middle afternoon stream again. It seems to be doing a little bit better than the early morning one. But we'll see. We're still trying to find out because, hey, I definitely want to monetize this at some point. So, hey, we'll have to figure out what's going to work best for everybody. Anyway, we're out of here. Have a great day. Take care. We'll see you here next time for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. Let's try to be a little bit saner this week and not try to go back and kill each other and maybe talk about something different than one news story for the entire stream. But we'll see what happens, of course. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.